Welcome to Vedanta Bhakti Pravachan channel. In Sai Satcharitra, up to chapter number 15, we have seen so many things about Sai Baba. In chapter number 16 and 17, the writer is describing about the Brahma Jnana. The last chapter described how Mr. Cholkar's vow of small offering was completed and accepted. In that story, Sai Baba showed that he would accept with appreciation any small thing offered with love and devotion, but if the same thing was offered with pride and haughtiness, he would reject it. Being himself full of Sat, Chit, Anand, he did not care much for mere outward formalities, but if an offering was made in a humble spirit, the same was welcome and he accepted it with pleasure and avidity. In fact, there is no person more generous and benevolent than a Sadguru like Sai Baba. He cannot be compared to the Chintamani Jewel, the Kalpataru or the Kamadhenu. They give us only what we deserve, but the Sadguru gives us the most precious thing, that is inconceivable and inscrutable the reality. Now let us hear how Sai Baba disposed of a rich man who became to him and implored him to give him a Brahma Jnana. There was a rich gentleman who was very prosperous in his life. He had amassed a large quantity of wealth, houses and lands, and had many servants and dependents. When Sai Baba's fame reached the ears, he said to a friend of his that he was not in want of anything, and so he would go to Shirdi and ask Baba to give him Brahma Jnana, which if he got would certainly make him more happy. His friend dissuaded him, saying, "It is not easy to know Brahma, and especially so for an avaricious man like you, who is always engrossed in wealth, wife and children, who will in your quest of Brahma Jnana satisfy you, who does not give away even a paisa in charity." Not minding his friend's advice, the fellow engaged in a return journey to Tonga and came to Shirdi. He went to the masjid, saw Sai Baba, fell at his feet and said, "Baba, hearing that you show Brahma to all who come to you, I too have come here all the way from my distant place. I am much fatigued by the journey, and if I get Brahma Jnana from you, my troubles will be well paid and rewarded." Baba then replied, "Oh my dear friend, do not be anxious. I shall show you Brahma. Many people come to me and ask for wealth, health, power, honor, position, cure of diseases, and other temporal matters. Rare is the person who comes to me and asks for Brahma Jnana. There is no dearth of people asking for worldly things, but people interested in spiritual matters are very rare. I think it is a fortunate and auspicious moment when persons like you come and ask me for Brahma Jnana. So forthwith, I show to you with pleasure Brahma with all its accompaniments and complexities." Saying this, Baba started to show him Brahma. He made him sit there and engaged him in some other talk and thus made him forget his question for the time being. Then he called a boy and told him to go to one Nandu Marwadi and get him from loan of 5. The boy was left and returned immediately, saying that Nandu was absent and his house was locked. Then Baba asked him to go to Baba Grocer and get from his the said loan. The time also the boy was unsuccessful. This experiment was repeated again and twice or thrice with the same result. Sai Baba was, as we know, the living and moving Brahma incarnate. Then someone may ask, why did he went to the paltry sum of 5 rupees, and why did he try hard to get it? In reality, he did not want this sum at all. He must have known fully that Nandu and Bala were absent, and he seemed to have adopted the procedure at text for the seeker of Brahma. The gentleman had a roll of bundle of currency notes in his pocket, and if it was really earned, they would not have sat quiet and be mere onlooker when Baba was frantically trying to get a paltry sum of rupees 5. He knew that Baba would keep his word and repay the debt, and that sum wanted was insignificant. Still, he could not make up his mind and advance the sum. Such a man wanted from Baba the greatest thing in the world, that is the Brahma Jnana. Any other man who really loved Baba would have given him rupees 5 at once instead of being a mere onlooker. It was otherwise with this man. He advanced no money, nor did he sit silent, but began to be impatient. As he was in a haste to return and implored Baba, saying, "Oh Baba, please give me Brahmagyan soon." Baba replied, "Oh my dear friend, did you not understand all the procedure that I went through? Sitting in the place for enabling you to see Brahma, it is in a short this, for seeing Brahma and is to five things, surrendered five things. Five pranas, five senses, mind, intellect and ego. This path of Brahmagyan or self-realization is a hard as treading on the edge of frozen. Sai Baba then gave a rather long discourse on the subject, the purport of which is given below. All persons do not see or realize the Brahma in their lifetime. Certain qualifications are absolutely necessary. Mumukshu or intense desire to get free. He who thinks that he is bounded and that he could get free from bondage and works earnestly and resultly to that and does not care for any other thing is qualified for the spiritual life. Virakti or a feeling of non-attachment with the things of this world or the next, unless a man feels disgust with the things, emoluments and honors which his actions would bring in this world and the next, he has no right to enter into the spiritual realm. Antarmukha, our senses have been created by God with a tendency to move outward, and so man always looks outward and not inward. He who wants self-realization and immortal life must turn his gaze inwards and look to his inner self. Catharsis, eliminating all base ideas and emotions. Unless a man has turned away from weakness and stopped from doing wrong and has entirely composed himself, and unless his mind is at rest, he cannot gain self-realization by means of knowledge. Right conduct. Unless a man leads a life of truth, penance and insight, a life of celibacy, he cannot get God realization. Preferring Shreyas to Preyas, there are two sort of things, the good and the pleasant. The former deals with spiritual affairs and the latter with mundane matters. Both these are open to man for acceptance. He has to think and choose one of them. The wise man prefers the good and the pleasant, but the unwise, through greed and detachment, chooses the pleasant. Control of the mind and the senses. The body is the chariot and the self is its master. Intellect is the charioteer and the mind is the reins. The sense are the horses and sense objects are the paths. He who has no understanding and whose mind is unrestrained has his senses unmanageable, like the stray horse of charioteer, does not reach his destination, but goes through the round of births and deaths. But he who has understanding and whose mind is restrained has his senses under control, like the God-obedient horse of charioteer, reaches the destination. The state of self-realization, when he is not born again, the man who has understanding as his charioteer and is able to rein his mind, reaches the end of the journey, which is the supreme abode for all the pervading Vishnu. Purification of the mind. Unless a man discharges satisfactorily and disinterestedly the duties of this station in life, the mind will not be purified. And unless his mind is purified, he cannot get self-realization. It is only the purified mind that Vivek crop up and lead on to self-realization. Unless egoism is dropped, aware is got rid of, and by the mind made desireless, self-realization is not possible. The idea that I am the body is a great delusion, and attachment to this idea is the cause of bondage. Leave off this idea and attachment, therefore, if you want to reach the goal of self-realization. The necessity of a guru. The knowledge of the self is a subtle and mystic that no one can, by his own individual effort, ever hope to attain it. So, the help of other person, teacher, who has himself got self-realization, is absolutely necessary. What others cannot give with great effort and pains can be easily gained with the help of such a teacher, for he is walked on the path himself and can easily take the disciple step by step on the ladder of spiritual progress. And lastly, grace of the Lord is the most essential thing. When the Lord is pleased with anybody, he gives him viveka and vairagya and takes him safe beyond the ocean of mundane existence. The self cannot be gained by the study of Vedas, nor by intellect, nor by learning. he whom the self chooses gains it. To him the self reveals its nature, says the Katha Opposition. After the desertion was over, Baba turned to the gentleman and said, "Well, sir, there is in your pocket the brahma in the form of 50 times of 5, that is 250 rupees. Please take that out." The gentleman took out from his pocket the bundle of currency notes, and to his great surprise, finding on counting them that there were 25 of 10 rupees each. Seeing the omniscience of Baba, he was moved and fell at Baba's feet and craved of his blessings. Then Baba said to him, "Roll up your bundle of Brahma, currency notes. Unless you completely get rid of your avarice or greed, you will not get any real Brahma. How can he whose mind is engrossed in wealth, progress and prosperity accept to know the Brahma without removing his attachment for them? The illusion of attachment or the love of money is a deep eddy of pain full of crocodiles in the form of conceit and jealousy. He who ascended as poles, he who is desireless can alone cross the whirlpool. Greed and Brahma are asunder as poles. They are eternally proposed to each other. Where there is a greed, there is no room for thought or meditation of the Brahma. Then how can a greedy man get dispatched of salvation? For a greedy man there is no peace, neither contentment nor steadiness. If there be a little trace of greed in mind, all the sadhanas are no avail. Even the knowledge of well-read man, who is not free from the desire of the fruit of reward for action, is futile and cannot help him to get self-realization. The teachings of Guru are not use to a man who is full of egoism and who always thinks about the sense objects. Purification of mind is absolutely necessary. Without it, all our spiritual endeavors are nothing but useless show and pomp. It is therefore better of one to take only what he can digest and assimilate. My treasury is full and I can give anyone what he wants, but I have to see whether he is qualified to receive my gift. If you listen to me carefully, you will be certainly benefited. While sitting in the masjid, I never speak any untruth. When a guest is invited to a house, all the members of the household and other friends and relations that happen to be present are entertained along with the guest, so all those there were present in the masjid at that time could partake of the spiritual feast that was severed by Baba for the rich gentleman. After getting Baba's blessings, one and all, including the gentleman, left the place quite happy and contented. There are many saints who, leaving their houses, stay in forests, caves, and hermitages and in solitude in order to get liberation and salvation from themselves. They do not care for the people and are always self-absorbed. Sai Baba was not a such type. He had no home, no wife, no progeny, nor any relations near or distant. Still he lived in the world. He begged his bread from 4 or 5 houses, always lived in the foot of the neem tree, carried on worldly dealings and taught all the people how to act and behave living in this world. Rare were the sadhus and saints who, after attaining God vision, strive for the welfare of the people. Sai Baba was the foremost of these ends. Therefore, says a Mahatman, blessed is the country, blessed is the family, and blessed are the chaste parents, but the extraordinary, transcendent, precious, and pure jewel was born. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all.